Stay in the industry. Stay in the industry. What did you...
You touched my hat.
Don't touch the hat.
I don't think you could ever wear a hat like this to one of those.
No, I wouldn't.
To one of those concerts.
You would get the looks, probably, yes.
No, you would lose the hat.
You would lose the hat and the head.
Folks, I'm Tom Vasel.
I'm Zee Garcia. Hello.
Sam Healey, what's up, y'all?
So we're recording this at the very beginning of April 2017, and we are now full bore into the gaming year. The gaming year, in my opinion, starts at Gamma Trade Show.
Yeah.
Well, it actually starts probably at New York Toy Fair in Nuremberg, but
Right.
it hits America at the Gamma Trade Show. We are now gearing up. We're starting to see announcements all over the place, finalized dates for when things are going to show up. Companies are starting to talk a little bit about what they're going to do over the course of the year. So we're going to just talk about briefly what we think where the board game industry is right now.
Okay.
So first, just the state of the industry as a whole. I don't know about you guys, but I talked to lots of different people at Gamma, and my general impressions that I got from everybody is very positive. You know, usually there's a couple Eeyores, you know, like
Right.
well, you know.
Oh, bother.
And this actually, I was surprised. I got a lot of positive response from board game store owners. And usually they're kind of in that doom and gloom cycle, like, internet, Kickstarter, you know, whatever. And
Do you think that is directly related to a lot of these companies putting more of these come play at the local store programs into place? Because it does seem to be a big push. It was certainly a big push last year. The trend continues this year.
the trend is definitely continuing. There's all sorts of
Organized play
things
stuff.
that
Right.
companies are doing. They're doing the only sell in local stores, which, by the way, I think is a bad idea.
Right.
I really dislike that only sell in local stores because not everyone has a local store.
Right.
Then they've done the thing where, like Yellow, for example, has it come out in a local store
Early.
2 weeks before online.
Yes.
I'm definitely okay with that.
That's
That's a
pretty
good
cool.
Who cares
idea.
when
That's a
games
good
come
idea.
out?
Yeah.
Some are doing local store promos only, where you can get promos for the games, and you can only get it if you go buy it at your local store. I don't know where I stand on that because, again, what if you don't have a local store? And some of these local stores are people complaining about the same thing at Kickstarter exclusives. I'm not sure the store exclusive is...
Right. No, I get that. But it's
the
still...
one half a dozen the other.
Yeah, right. It's sort of just turning the problem on its head, and it's a different
So
problem.
buy games from your local store and back your Kickstarters, and you got all the promos.
I think it's an interesting push, though, towards supporting that crowd, which is why I assume they are. They seem to be happier when you've spoken to them, and all of these companies are exploring new ways to sort of do that. And as long as the exploration is in place, the intent is there, that's a good direction for the industry.
That's cool.
The industry is pretty strong. The biggest concern in the industry now, from what I can tell, is that there are just too many games. It's difficult for a store to go and say, what games do I stock on my shelves? Because you don't have room for all of them. No one has a Toys R Us sized building. So where are you going to, well, that Madness place in Dallas.
Yes. This is
But
true.
other than
They can
that
hold
one-
all the games.
But you can't do it. And there's so many games coming from Kickstarter.
Right.
And then you have to kind of feel out your alpha gamers because they're the ones who buy everything. And how many do you put on the shelf? But still, overall, feeling pretty good. What is your perception of the strongest companies? Last year, there was one company that dominated everything, and that was Asmodee.
Yes,
Remember? Because
right.
last year, we talked about how they bought up companies, and since last year, they bought Z-Man, which we did not expect. They bought Spotted, and they bought Catan. Spotted is not so well known, but it has sold millions of copies. Catan is a huge property.
Right.
I mean, I don't know. I think when I think of that question, I tend to think of which companies seem to be learning the most and making the smartest moves. I don't know how they're doing money-wise, because I wouldn't be privy to that information.
Right.
But which ones seem to be getting smarter with their choices? Right near the top of that list right away is Portal for me, who seems to be learning from what they're doing. They seem to know when to hold back on a game. This is something we talked about recently on something else. When
Top
something's
10
not
list.
ready to be released, right? They will hold off until that product is ready to be released, which is a smart move. They are re-implementing games and cycling out symbology when words are better. They are doing second editions that are stronger. Smart moves. And they're at the top of that list, you know? They're the first ones that came to mind. Do you have another one that comes to mind?
Well, I think the smartest, biggest company, and again, we're talking Hobby World, we're not talking Hasbro and Mattel
Sure.
and all that. Asmodee is still the biggest, and It does seem like they're teetering, though, on the strength of their intellectual properties. It really does. Like, they talked about how their biggest seller of all time has now become Star Wars Destiny, that DICE collectible card game.
Wow.
That's huge, right? That,
But again,
and-
we're talking here about what I was saying anyway was smart moves. They then turned around and said, we're only printing this much. Not a smart move, in my opinion.
Well, I understand that you don't think it's a smart move, but it is a tried and true practice from Wizards of the Coast who do the same thing. And I don't think many people would call them a
People
dumb
seem
company.
to be complaining that they can't get it.
No, that was the very initial one. They just said that they underestimated the demand for it.
Okay.
We'll see. That one is kind of out for thing. I think this biggest company that's coming in strong is CMON.
They are, again, making smart moves.
They're hiring so many people. Now, you guys see that they hired Eric Lang, right, for their development, designing. That's a big deal. Not just that they get him as a full-time designer, but that he's sitting there looking at other people's designs. That's right. And he's a smart guy. But that's not the only person. They're hiring their own art teams. They've hired marketing directors. They've went and gotten people from other companies that were really good. Another company was foolish to let them go. And they snatched these people up. They have one of the strongest teams of people I've met. Right. They really are on the ball. I mean, they're not perfect, okay? We're not defending everything that CMON does. I don't necessarily agree with everything that they do, but they have a strong presence. And they just announced the Song of Fire and Ice miniature game.
Yeah.
And Fantasy Flight has announced that new Rune Wars. So I'm looking forward to watching the miniatures
really start to ramp up.
Come up this year. I think we're going to see, because there's a lot of miniatures games out there. Games Workshop has come out, guns blazing.
Right.
They're making game after game after game.
Yes,
they're redoing old games. They're redoing Necromunda. They redid Blood Bowl.
Yes.
Then there's other ones that are coming up. What's that one in England?
Coming out with Shadespire. They're coming out with Shadespire, which is a brand new step in another direction for them.
Which, again, I think is a company making smart moves.
Yeah.
Again, I don't know how much money they make. I don't know any of that stuff.
Past mistakes.
That's it.
And they're making the changes, and they're stepping forward.
And I think that's to be commended.
Yeah.
That's the way you do it. It doesn't matter how much your games are making. I don't know. But, man, selling a game to a brand new audience for a price sometimes unheard of for what they get in there, appealing to the miniatures players at the same time, possibly creating new miniatures players, they're doing very smart moves.
Yeah, I agree.
But I think this is good. It's good to have competition.
Oh, yeah.
For a while, they had no competition.
Right.
Now they got Fantasy Flight, which is no small potatoes, and CMON, who is a smaller potato, but they're getting bigger.
Yep.
And they're coming in, and we have 3 different miniature systems. That's great. I mean, that's 3. I mean, I know there's more other ones out there.
I was just about to say that, yeah.
We're talking in the board game realm, but these are 3 that are somewhat similar.
Correct.
So I'm excited about that. I'm excited to see some other smaller publishers. How long can we call Renegade a small publisher? Renegade is making
Renegade has
lots of good moves.
3 or 4 employees. They're a small publisher.
I know they are.
They are just, again, killing it with their product.
Very much so.
And they are making just incredible, choices in what they publish, what they don't publish. Talking about publishers that seem to be putting anything and everything out there, Renegade clearly is not following in those steps.
We were just talking about this while we were recutting those Gamma end reviews, and I mean every single game that Renegade showed, we were like, "Wow,
right?
That's some good stuff." And they showed 6 of them,
and they seem to know when something's not ready to be published.
Correct.
And so again, they are very small, but they're sticking to those guidelines.
Right.
I'm also really excited. This is a trend that started a little last year and is really roaring in, is the companies overseas are making a big push to be in America. You mentioned Portal. CGE is here all the time now.
Yes.
We've seen Ravensburger showing up and Thames and Cosmos. And
Haba continues their push in the U.S.
This is exciting. I just read online that, what's that Japanese company? Oink. Oink is planning to be at Gen Con now. Wow. This is exciting stuff, right? We're starting to see these companies have a global presence. They're no longer letting someone else control their stuff on another thing.
Right.
The whole days where Rio Grande and Mayfair reprinted everything, that's in the past.
Right.
And I'm okay with that, because more companies is better for the business anyway.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah.
So where do you see games? We got to see a lot of different games. What trends are we seeing in games?
I'm seeing a lot of nostalgia. I can't remember the company.
Restoration games, I'm assuming.
Well, Restoration Games is one of them. That's not the one I was thinking
I'm
of.
excited about those.
IDW, Centipede. They're coming out with a whole line
right.
of games. I think there's going to be like 4 games that are based on that old arcade game settings. They've got, I think Asteroids was going to be another one that was coming up. Centipede is one.
Invaders or something.
And Space Invaders is going to be another one. So it's like, dude, this is really cool. But at the same time, you have other kinds of nostalgia, like Dresden Files is getting, and that's been almost like a cult following favorite, fan favorite that's coming along. So that's being stepped up now. There's just a whole bunch of
IPs are here to stay at this point.
Yes.
And they're no longer an automatic bad game.
Correct.
I think that's why they're here to stay.
Yes.
Because finally
that's really cool.
We've gone over that hump of like, oh, this is based on something from TV. We'll keep walking. We're past it.
Right.
But I think that's a good call, and I think it ties into the everything old is new again a little bit with, say, trick-taking games seem to be back and forced this year for some reason. We saw announced at Gamma 6, 7, 8 trick-taking games. And again, it's a throwback genre of style of game.
2-player trick-taking game.
2-player trick-taking games. We had the video games one. I forget what company announced Laser Riders with a bunch of Z's in there, which was, again, based on a fake 80s TV show.
Right.
And so realizing that people buying board games, people spending money into the industry, putting money back into it, grew up, many of them, in the 80s, is now sort of clicking in, right? And so all these trick-taking games and all these games based on 80s properties or video games or whatever are becoming really popular, It's a good trend.
The other trend, and we talk about this because they're just bursting out of everywhere, the escape room in a box.
Ooh, huge. Huge.
I mean, Tames and Cosmos announced a line of them. Space Cowboys has some. We got one from DV Jochi, the Game Right, and I would not be surprised if you see 6 more at least announced because it's very popular and they're fun. Right. And the crowd who hates the disposable legacy games is going to really hate these, but they're here to stay, right?
Yeah, and it's a new gaming experience in a box.
Right.
Something you couldn't get in a box before.
Yeah.
And people are hating it a lot online, but they're not realizing that the vast majority of people are really loving this stuff.
Right.
So we'll see where it goes. I think overall, it's a pretty strong thing. I didn't notice I'm not seeing like cracks. People are always like, when's the whole thing going to collapse? I'm not seeing that at this point. We'll know more as we go to different conventions this year and watch what happens. But I'm pretty pumped. I played a lot of great 2017 games already, and there's still plenty more that are on their way. So it's looking good.
Looking good, definitely,
Yeah, I agree. Again, the only thing I think to be aware of, probably as a company more than anything, is that yes, there is more competition out there now. Your game needs to be better if you want to be on the shelves,
Stop making mediocre games.
Stop making mediocre games.
Go watch our last top 10.
It's just a good idea anyway, but it's getting more and more important because we got more competition. Great games are coming out.
Alrighty, well, until next time, I'm Tom Vasel.
I'm Zee Garcia. Thanks, everybody.
Sam Healey. See you on the flip side, y'all.